So this is going to be the FRQ rubric for the Egypt population FRQ that you took way back when before break. So let's get into it. First of all, identify a country from the table above with a natural increase rate of 1% to 1.9% and identify where it falls in the GTM. So there were two options you could have picked. Mexico or India both fall within this range. And essentially how you figure this out is by computing the birth rate and the death rate and the difference between them. So Mexico has a natural increase rate of about 1.5%. India, a natural increase rate of about 1.7%. So both of them would fall because of that within stage 3 of the demographic transition model. So there were 2 half points available in this question. The first one was the correct identification of the country. The second one was the correct identification of the DTM stage. So if you got a half point in this one, that's why. B, identify an epidemiological issue that exists more prevalently in Egypt than in France. So epidemiological means related to the study of disease. So what I had to see in this part was a specific type of disease, or a specific, like a more specific medical condition than just a vague answer about having worse results as it relates to healthcare. So you actually had to get a little bit deeper into it, okay? Even though it's an identified question. So some things that students said that were successful: higher rates of infant mortality and maternal mortality. So because of the lack of development, higher infant mortality rates, higher maternal mortality rates, both of those are epidemiological issues, and easily connected to lower levels of development that exist in Egypt compared to France. Another one kind of connected to that, medical conditions associated with food insecurity. So malnutrition, poor medical care, things like that kind of, when comparing the two countries, Egypt would fall in that stage. I would say the most common answer is the next one: higher rates of infectious or communicable disease, and larger percentage of infectious disease as a cause of death. And the last one, this speaks to Egypt's place as a less developed country, but also the sort of stage 3 of the epidemiological transition, which are deaths that are oftentimes related to physical environment and human activity. So street, kind of automobile accidents. Street fatalities is a weird way to put that. Strokes, smoking-related deaths, less so alcohol-related deaths, because Egypt is a predominantly Muslim country and alcohol use is lower in that part of the world than in other parts. But deaths related to either physical environment or human activity. And I would say this was not a very common answer, but works in this one. All right, C, identify an economic benefit to the population structure of Egypt seen above. So there were pretty much answers that most answers, I would say, fell within the first bullet point in the identification. So Egypt's population pyramid is that of a stage 2, probably going into a stage 3 country. So Egypt has a younger working age population that can lead to an economic boom down the years. So we have kind of a much younger country, a country that is heading into its demographic and economic kind of boom years, potentially. And with that, they have a lower elder dependency ratio as well. So the lack of economic costs related to aging, we see. D, identify a reason why Mexico and Brazil have lower death rates than the other countries on the list. So there are 2 primary reasons for that. Some people explain, so it really helps you in these types of answers if you take one of your answers and explain it really well, rather than having both of these somewhere on there. So the best answer, because if you're comparing Mexico and Brazil to most of the other countries are more developed, which ultimately means that they have an older age structure. So because Mexico and Brazil both have a younger population structure, they have lower death rates, essentially related to aging and the fact that as countries age or go through kind of stage 4 and into stage 5 and have widespread aging, death rates tend to increase. So when you look at these types of countries, kind of younger stage 3 type countries, Mexico and Brazil fit into having lower death rates. And then another thing you could have done is actually compare Mexico and Brazil to Nigeria. So essentially, for this one, I really wanted to see the word Nigeria in your answer, because I wanted to get the sense that you're explicitly comparing it to Nigeria. Both countries have higher levels of development than Nigeria, and fewer rates related to things like infant mortality rate and other causes of death associated with a lack of development. So higher rates of infectious disease, lack of access to higher quality of medical care and medicine itself, All of those would sort of be good answers for that. So those were kind of the two different things you could have said. E, so the key word in this, as always, is describe. Describe a challenge that women in Egypt might disproportionately face as a result of the population structure above. So because of the population structure that we see, we can kind of assume in some ways that the traditional family roles and the fact that the role of taking care of family and children disproportionately falls on women. So for issues related to population, but for also issues related to cultural norms and traditions and things like that within the country. Lack of economic opportunities, connected to kind of the first bullet point. Pressure to carry unwanted pregnancies because of what we see in terms of the higher rates of younger people within the country. Lack of maternal care and healthcare, so higher infant mortality rates, higher maternal mortality rates, both of these things, of course, while tragic for the whole family, disproportionately the impact of it falls on women. And then a little bit of a skewed sex ratio, partially as a result of preference for male children, which we could maybe assume by looking at the pyramid. And the last one, describe an economic, political, or social policy that the government in Egypt could implement in response to alter negative effects of the population structure above. So some kind of answers that fit into a broad category. The first one would be the introduction of family planning, contraception use, and increased access to reproductive education and healthcare. Kind of going hand in hand with that is the third bullet point, which are policies that lead to greater empowerment for women, educational programs or economic programs geared toward women. You could have also said the introduction of more restrictive antenatal policies. People mentioned things like the one-child policy or the policies in Singapore, which is an answer to this, right? Which makes sense. Restrictions on policies that lead to male preference. So that is one or two people said answers like that. And then the last one, I don't think a whole lot of people said, but changes in immigration law and the development of guest worker programs to permit more of a flow of outside workers. All right, thanks. Bye.